with about 100 employees. I'm a manufacturing company. I'm vice chairman of the board for the Monadnock Economic Development Corporation and a member of the Governor's Millennial Advisory Council, specifically on the committee working on housing. And I come before you today to really support this wholeheartedly. Housing is a foundational issue. Whether we're trying to attract new workers from outside the state, whether we're protecting people from domestic violence, or taking care of our seniors, housing is going to be an essential part of any solution. 47 states and Washington, D.C. utilize housing trust funds and encourage development of affordable housing. Most rely on the real estate transactions tax to fund sustainably those trust funds. And it should come as no surprise that we're in competition with the surrounding states. And we're not spending nearly as much as the other states in New England in this regard. New Hampshire really hasn't had any dedicated funding source for the Affordable Housing Fund and has been making pretty modest investments. Just to give you some perspective, Vermont spent $8.9 million in 2017 and makes similar investments annually. They've used that to leverage over $37 million when combined with other sources and tax credits. Maine spends between $8 and $11 million annually and derives that revenue from the real estate transfer tax for their housing fund. Maine also bonded $50 million in 2008 to support their affordable housing fund and did another $15 million bond recently to support that fund. So we're not only being outspent by our neighbors, but their consistent investments allow them to be much more creative and relevant in the programs that they are coming up with. As an example, Maine uses between 20 and 40% of their housing trust fund on home improvement and energy upgrade programs, which is something that we really haven't been able to do here in New Hampshire, but I know is desperately needed, especially in Keene. And this really leads me to my second point. Housing in New Hampshire is tremendously diverse, more diverse than we would think. My experience on the Millennial Advisory Council has allowed me to talk to a lot of people working on housing projects all over the state, and I was frankly really surprised how the needs in Keene are different from the needs in the Lakes region, which are different than the needs in the Seacoast. For example, in Keene, we need renovation and weatherization programs. We have a lot of old housing stock. We don't necessarily need, or we're not experiencing a shortage of workforce housing necessarily. It's just the housing stock is not of the quality that we need. So I asked that, along with passing this bill, that no limitations be imposed by the legislature on the types of housing eligible for trust fund programs. I know that this has been done in the past with the best of intentions, but in this case, the more flexible the funding, the more appropriate and far-reaching the product can really be, and that's what we need. We need to fund this sustainably and enable that creativity and the flexibility to come up with unique programs to suit each region in New Hampshire. So my final point is more and more leaders like me at the municipal level are really ready and willing to work with the state and community partners on housing issues, and this really is the first step to reinforcing those collaborative efforts and creating those opportunities to take care of our citizens here in New Hampshire. I thank you for your time. I have some written comments that I'll submit through the chairman.